Hey, so I did that post on the Crown Urn that I modded to have a pump and firmware and SDC controller and all that. So I thought I'd do a quick video of Brewday so that you can see exactly how it all works. It's pretty straightforward, but it's something to do on a Friday morning. So this is how it's all pretty much set up, a bit like the photo, well, exactly like the photos. I've got my SDC, it's got a 20 amp SSR in there so that the 10 amp urn doesn't blow the SDC. I've heard some people have done it without, but I thought for the sake of a couple of dollars off eBay, I'd just get the solid state relay and add it into it. The same can be said about the 50mm thermal well. I'll show you that inside, even though there's water. The one I got came with this little thing which sort of stops it coming out because you can tighten it. Inside there is thermal grease. It's messy as, and when I disconnect all this and store it, I put this whole unit in a little Ziploc baggie because it's messy and sticky. Down here is the ball valve. I'm sure plenty of you have seen these or added them to yours anyway. And this is the little, I think it's about $20 12 volt 9 litre a minute pump from eBay. It's got, what is it? It's got 2 male threads on the either side, and I cocked up when I got the cam locks and got a male, so I had to get a joiner. If you're going to do it, get a cam lock with a female thread. And that's just the cam lock. I think it's F-type fitting that's in there, so that just looks like that. They're pretty good because as you can see, you can do it one-handed if you need to. On the outside of this, just a 90-degree bends attached to that, female and male. On the other side of this, you could do what I've do and thread it all onto it and then just put a Jubilee clip. Or what I've got up here, if you follow this round, which is a second ball valve added, is, come on, use the barb. I read that if you use a barb, you're restricting the flow. So even though I've got one there, I'm still restricting the flow, but I haven't really seen any issues with it. Also, I didn't put a cam lock on this side because I empty into the furnace through this, and I didn't really want like that whole unit to be near it. Whereas if it's coming out just the pipe, then like it's less likely to get infected. That's just your bog standard 20mm silicone hose. Ignore this. I tried making a gauge for how much water is, but as you can see, there's 2 different levels because that is what I measured it at, and then when I was filling it, that's what I was getting. So I should just take it off because it's pretty useless, but I still use it as a gauge because I emptied 24 litres of water in there, and it's sort of around where it needs to be. In the top, that's my eBay steamer rack. There's the thermal. On the inside, I've got a 90-degree bend so I can get a bit of pickup. I do leave a bit of water in there. It's about 1.4, 1.5, actually no, is it 1.3 litres of drub. And on the inside, I've got another 90-degree, and that's just a bit of a makeshift copper pipe that I just twisted, which has actually stained the plumber's tape a bit green, so I should probably change that. But yeah, that's it for the moment. Normally I'd set this up on a timer so that it all starts going before I even wake up, but didn't get the water till just now because I'm using reverse osmosis. All my salts and that are in it. So it is, call it 8:25, and turn it on. So this is, so I just get it, set to my strike of 68.1. Urn is up to full speed, well, full power, and you can sort of just hear it coming on. What I'll do as well is plug my pump in, just to try and get it a bit more, there we go. I do have a switch for the pump, so I don't need to plug it in and out to turn it on and off, but I just never got around to adding it. and you can sort of see that's the movement I'm getting on the inside. So that should hopefully mix all my salts up into it. So I'll see you back in, I guess, about 40 minutes. I guess we'll see. So you can see it's already changing anyway. So, cool. So the other thing I'll show you is, if you don't want to spend 100, 130, however much they are on one of the proper rolling mills for your grain, you can just get a, I think it's about $25 from China, Corona mill. Actually, I think this one came from Sydney. Did the usual things, adjust the split gap thing and fix that in place. Replace the handle with a little nut bolt, so I can use a drill to power it a lot easier than doing it by hand. You can just see it behind me, and that's a kilo of grain in there. I need to make a bigger hopper. Just got attached to the bench. I haven't fixed mine into a bucket to actually catch it, so at the moment I've just got a bag tied around it with a bit of rope, but that works fine for now until I actually get around to fix it into a bucket. But I'll just show you how fast you can mill a kilo of grain with a drill. So yeah, a more powerful drill would be a bit handier, but I think the grain is just clogging it up a little bit because it's all falling into the one space in the bag. But yeah, it works fine for me. I'll show you how fine I crush it afterwards, and yeah, $30, and most people have a drill. A corded one would probably be better than a battery, because I have drained like a full 2.5 amp, I think it is, or whatever the battery sizes are. It was 2.5. Ryobi battery doing, I think, about 6 kilos of grain, and a bit more torque would probably stop it overheating. I have done that before as well. But yeah, that's just the drill. I mean, if you have a better drill, it's fine. So this is my crush. You can see it's pretty fine. There's a few chunks of starch in there, but yeah, that's what I use. Hey, so it's been actually exactly 40 minutes and it's just reached strike temperature. It's overshot it by 0.2 before it, well, I mean, it kicked off at 0.1, but by the time it settled. So now just mashing. This is all I use, brew bag and bulldog clips. Now the dip tube is very important for the bag. I had a couple of issues with different variations, not having a dip tube, having the dip tube just going straight to the left, and the bag would get sucked in, which is a pain in the ass when you've got like 65-degree like liquor in there and you're trying to put a spoon that isn't big enough to try and keep it away. So that was a pain in the ass because the pump got stuck and then it didn't do what it was supposed to do. The false bottom, apart from keeping it off the element, I mean, helps keep it away from the dip tube, whatever variation you have. So I was going to mash in. I probably need to see that. I mean, I'm pouring it in and mixing it in. So I'll be back in a second. Hey, so I am all mashed in, all nice and mixed in. Like usual, watch for, I can't remember what you call them, when the grain clumps together, you know. I found a good thing to use is one of these rather than a mash paddle, because you can stir it and then lift it, and then as you're lifting it, sort of shake it, whereas like a spoon or like even a mash paddle, you sort of, it's a straight thing without sort of a plate to do it on. But anyway, that's just because it's lying around. I did add about 600 ml of room temperature water, because this was sitting at 65.5 and I wanted it to get to 64.5, but it's 64.7 now, so that's good enough. So shut the lid on. The pump is still going, that will be going the whole time. I don't bother insulating because the temperature pretty much stays where I want it. It does vary a little bit, especially if it drops and then the element comes on. It does sometimes jump maybe half degree to a degree above, but then when that turns off, it sort of drops back down pretty quick. So there is some variance. A PID would be better, but this STC was about $15, including the SSR. All the wiring is just extension cords that I cut up like all the tutorials. You can find them on the internet, it's pretty straightforward. I did do this for a fridge, but because I haven't had it checked, I didn't really want to have it on all the time. But seeing as I'm going to be sat here, if it sets on fire, it's not too bad because I'm right here. If it blows the house, then, well, we'll see what happens then. But it hasn't so far, so anyway, I'll see you in an hour. I'm just going to get my pH meter ready to go. I did actually add some more water because when I said there was 24, that was just a reverse osmosis. I had to add 2.6 litres of just my tap water because I get my RO water from one of those dispensers, and the container I had, I only fill 24 litres, so if I got another container it'd be fine. So I use Brewer's Friend to do all that. The pH has come out pretty close. I've been getting it closer. Last time I was 0.1 out, so I just added an extra 0.1 mil of lactic just to this time to see if it brings it down, because I've been overshooting it based on the calculations. But yeah, I'll see you in an hour and I will see what the dog is barking about. So I just thought I'd show you the variance in temperature I'm getting. So I've got it set for 64.5. I've got a 0.4 differential, which just means it'll kick on when it goes 0.4 under. So I'll just let this keep recording, and you can just see what it does. So it's hit 64.1, it's just turned on the heat. Now you can hear it going. Well, I think you can. So it hits 64.7, turns off the heating element. Obviously it keeps going because the element's hot. Now if I did have a cooler set in, then the cooling system would be turned on, but I don't want to just let it come down naturally. So yeah, there we go, a top peak of 0.7 higher than like target mash temp. Call it 0.5 because it seems to have settled on that. And now it'll just sit there and it'll cycle on and off for the whole hour.
sure you could just insulate it like I used to do with a pot, but to be honest, this is just easier and it saves lagging it and then mixing it up every 20 minutes if you do that. And yeah, so that's that. One day I will upgrade this to a PID, just to get a bit more control, but at the moment I'm pretty happy with this. So I'll stop it there anyway, so you can guess what's going to happen. It's going to keep dropping until it goes to 64.1, then it'll turn back on, and it'll just keep cycling like that.
So one other thing I mentioned in the post was adding a third ball valve for taking samples, pH testing and hydro samples, basically. And this is why. It's not much effort, to be honest. It's just one of those things. It'd be nice to be able to just turn a lever, but to get a sample out, have to do that. Same idea when you're taking a hydro sample. I generally just use a little container. The one going into the fermenter, I just take it from the fermenter because it's cool. I don't want to put anything in there when it's cool. So yeah.
So this is what the pH ended up coming out at. I was actually going for 5.2. Which I guess is why it plays to do the same recipe a couple of times to dial it in. I did take it at like 10-15 minutes in, and then added another half a mil of lactic, and it hasn't actually changed. I don't know if I just haven't left it enough to settle. Another thing is, this is just one of those cheap $10 pH meters off eBay. When I first used it with the buffer that came with it, that was a pH 4 and pH 6.86. It calibrated fine. Like, I could get those numbers, well, I mean, I could get 6.8 or 6.9, go 6.9 because, like, you know, 0.5 go highest one, etc. I've since got these which say pH 4 and pH 7. Now I've been trying to calibrate at 4 and 7, and I'm not sure if it's just they're a bit slack or in labelling, and the pH 7 is actually 6.86, and I'm trying to get 7 and I just can't do it, but I can't get them to dial in exactly. It could also be that the pH meter is just a piece of shit, which I'd probably go with that option. But it says 5.6, it's within range. We'll see what my efficiency is, but at the moment I'm happy to just sort of have a decent ballpark, but I'll be getting some proper pH buffer that's 6.8 thingy bob. So yeah, thanks.
So the mash is pretty much over. There's a couple of minutes left. I did an iodine test which came back positive anyway, just for shits and giggles really. Now, I did sparge this last time. I did this and I think I got a couple of extra points, but it was just extra work. So I was going to see how it goes. I was pretty happy not sparging. I haven't got a hoist, so it's a bit of a pain in the ass. I need to stand in a chair, lift it up, wait for it to drain a little bit. There's only 4.5 kilos of grain in this, so it's not really too bad anyway. And then what I do is put it in a tub with a colander upside down. This is the tub that I'm going to use for my Corona mill eventually when I get around to it. I'll just get another tub. Put it in there and then use one of these. It's actually a shit potato masher, so if you ever want to get one of these for mashing potatoes, don't. It's been relegated to squeegee in my grain bag. So I'll just put that in there, twist it as much as I can, and then give it a good squeeze. Most of the wort comes out, that will come out and sort of sits around the bottom, and then I'll just empty that back in and then take some measurements. I'm not going to bother filming this because it's a bit awkward, but I'll show you the results after. One thing I will show you is how I get the grain bag out of the pot. I know it sounds silly, it seems to work. Is a rolling pin. Wrap the cord around and then twist it, and it gives you something nice that you can hold it. Some of those thick gloves would be good because you do sort of need to touch it a bit to like twist it a little bit while it's hanging over the pot, and then when it's not dripping too much, just lift it out into the pot. I've got the pot on the counter next to it, I just put it down. But I'll give this another bit of a twist and then literally just get this and squeeze the shit out of it. I'll get it more tighter than that, it's just I need 2 hands for it. But lucky. That's that. So just finished squeezing, and you can just see I got about 1.4 litres of wort out of that bag. If you don't squeeze, I don't know why you don't, to be honest. It's just wasted. It's just wasted wort. I know some people say don't squeeze the wort because you'll get astringency, but I mean, if you're going to get astringency from the way that you crush grains for brewing a bag, then you're going to get it anyway, and I haven't really noticed anything. And if you think about it, the breweries that do all grain, they're not going to not squish the grain. Someone please correct me on that. It just doesn't seem logical to have like half a ton of grain and you're just going to lose that much wort when you can just squeeze it and get it out. Yeah, so I'll add that. I've actually set this to be a mash out. Can't be bothered pressing it, but it's 78. I could just turn it on and let it go to 100 because I'm going to do that anyway. I just sort of set that quickly while I was doing all this. So now I'll add all this back into here. Now the pump's still going just to try and boost up the temperature speed a bit quicker. And now for the measurements, like I said, this isn't really very accurate. I use a steel ruler put right at the side so I can measure it. Right, so call that about 310. After I turn this off, I'll turn the pump off just to get a more accurate measurement. I did find an equation on the Aussie Homebrewers website, so you can do this, so you can measure up and so you don't have to do it yourself. I've been using it and it's been pretty accurate. Just make sure you measure from the same place all the time because the bottom does have a bit of a curve. I've been using it right at the edge and like I've been coming pretty close. Obviously if you want to be a bit more accurate, measure it yourself and find out exactly how much you're putting in. But if you do that cold, it's going to be different when you measure this anyway, so it's kind of hit and miss. So I'm going to do that and then find out what my mash efficiency was. So cheers. So I'm almost up to boil. Just done my calculations. I've got this at I put it in the freezer, so this is actually about 10-11 degrees, and I forgot about it. But I'm going to call that 246. Looks like it's on 1.48, so I'm going to take 0.02 off that and 1.46. And these are my calculations. And so the calculation is whatever you measure minus 78, divide that by 11, then plus 6. Now if I do that, I get 27.1 litres, and at 1.46 gravity I get 89%. Now something seemed a bit off with that because there was only 27.3 litres in there. So I use the scale on the front anyway, just to see what that gives me, and that says 26.5 at 1.6, and that's 87. Now Beer Smith estimates 25 litres of wort left over. Now I'm not sure if that counts for squeezing the bag or whatever, but 25 plus the 1.4 that I did squeeze out gives me the 26.5. So it's in the ballpark somewhere. It's either 87 or 89 or something like that. Either way, I'm quite happy with that. Like I said, it's not too accurate, but it's good enough for me. Now I've just got a boil and something new has happened. This, I don't know if it's going to do it. My SDC gave me this reading. So it says it goes up to 100. I've never actually left it in this long. I usually take it out just because it says it only goes to 100, so hopefully I haven't fucked it. But I've got this little thermometer that I'll need when I'm cooling, because I'll just dismantle this and put it away. So that's the first time that's happened, so I guess unless I fucked it and I need to get a new one, I won't be leaving the temperature probe in there. So I've just started the boil temperature, the boil timer, and I'll show you why I put this in a baggie. That is all thermal paste. So yeah, if you're going to stash this somewhere, you don't really want that getting everywhere because it does stick. So I'll put it on there for now and then I'll sort it out. But yeah, start of the 1 hour boil. So it's out in the baggie and the temperature reading's working now, so I'll test that somehow and see if it's messed up the calibration. But yeah, it looks like it's not screwed. So this is my homemade immersion chiller. I got the copper from Bunnings. There's 18 meters of it, costs you $120. I know you can get cheaper ones off the internet that are half the size and pre-built, but I thought I'd got this when I was doing in a 19 litre pot, and I thought if I get 18 meters it will be good enough for this. I have tied it together with copper wire, but I'm thinking of adjusting this to leave a bit more space in between, because I do know that I have noticed that I don't get much movement in here, which is alright for during the boil because it's all bubbling up, but for the whirlpool hops in the bag, I put them on the sides because the pump is pumping right into it. If I put them in the middle, it doesn't really move too much. Fittings are just normal compression fittings that go onto there, and I've used one of the same barbs I use for the silicone hose, because I figured that'll go over my normal hose, and then just one of these. This is the inlet, that's why I've got this on, because it's going to be cold water going in. The outlet, I wanted it to be all metal and just use a Jubilee clip to keep the hose on, because I don't really trust one of these with boiling hot water coming out. Bog standard hose, I got this cheap from Stratco. It cost me like $5 for 15 meters, so I got 2 of them and cut them up. So yeah, that's my immersion chiller. I usually put this in at the beginning, but because the boil started, I'll add it in a couple of minutes so I can get all this sorted out. I have noticed that unless you've got everything fitted and you don't get all of the water out, I've learnt that quickly, when you put it in it starts to heat, you'll get some spluttering coming out, which isn't very good. So make sure you empty these after you've used them. I think it's bad if you leave the water in anyway, because like it'll do something to the copper if it's just sitting in there while you're not using it. But I'll just attach this to underneath the sink. I added a tap underneath there, so I can just attach that straight to that. Normally I've got this going all the way through the house down the drain, but I'm going to try just putting it around the back of here into there, just so I'm not having to trip over hoses. But yeah, that's that. So I got my immersion chiller all in, it's all fitted. I have to tie them there because it sort of pulls it to the side when it's sitting on the false bottom, and if I don't drop my phone, you can see it's bubbling nicely through the middle. That's what I mean about the initial hops. It doesn't matter if you put them in the middle for your 60-minute boils, they're going to go fine. It's all boiling anyway, but that's where there's the most movement. I like to put this in at the beginning because some people add it towards the last 15 minutes, but you do lose your boil when you put it in. and I like a lot of late editions, so I don't want to lose any boil while I'm doing that. So yeah, so it's, I think it was going for 10 minutes before I got this in, and lost it for a little bit, but it doesn't matter because like there's no hops in there, and it's still going to boil off all the DMS, and my plan worked. I've got this going all the way, excuse the mess, around there, tied that onto there, so it's going down the sink instead of going through the house, and my little attachment there. So I can't remember how long it's going, but the time will go off, and then I'll get these hop editions sorted out. Cool, so I've got 5 minutes until my 5-minute editions, which those ones are going to be 60 grams of Millennium and 60 grams of Citra, and then my Whirlpool will be 60 grams of Simcoe and 20 grams of Millennium, just for the sake of it. And then dry hop will be some Millennium. I've got another bag of that anyway, and I've got this Citra Livelin to play with, so 40 grams of that's going to go in. It's a hopefully 4.9% pale ale. The 4.5 kilos of malt is just Gladfield Gladfield American grain malt. I just wanted to keep it nice and simple because I just want to get rid of the crystal. And so what I'm doing is my 5 minutes will go in there, and then my whirlpools will go in there, so it'll get a nice boil there, and then the whirlpool will get the movement, and then basically they're just going to steep until I fix this immersion chiller. I started the pump now, so that anything that's in it can sort of get killed with the boiling water. I didn't leave it running the whole time, so I'll cut off now and then add the 5-minute additions, because I've got a feeling it's all going to go quite fast. Hey, so I've just I haven't just had a little issue. Of course, everything goes wrong when I'm trying to film it. Turns out these will overheat. I thought I fucked it, but I turned it on about 10 minutes before the end of the boil, just to, like I said, to kill anything that was in it, and it cut out just before I started to whirlpool. I've left it for about 5-7 minutes now, and I kept testing it, just plugging it back in, and it started to go fine. So yeah, just be wary, they will overheat. I suppose that's a thing to expect with any electronic goods. If they overheat, they will cut out. At least it's got that safety feature in it, so it doesn't just overheat and go kaput. And this is what it's doing. That little gloop there, I've got a feeling it's the whirl flock, because I dropped it in over there and it was chilling for a bit. But yeah, that's the movement I'm getting down there. So the outlet is going straight into the hot bag, so it's doing something, and you see in there there's not much movement, so that's why I want to increase the spacings in the immersion chiller. And yeah, so I'm just going to leave this to go for a bit, and then I'll start dropping the temperature. When I drop the temperature, I have this little thermometer. I'm sure you've all seen this, probably the cheapest ones you get on eBay. I just leave that in there just before the end of the boil, and then I've got a little ball valve on that tap, so I can adjust the flow and I just turn it on and off until I reach the temperature that I want. And I'm going to leave it a little bit longer because it wasn't recirculating when I first started this. So I was going to do half an hour, I might do 40 minutes now, just to keep it going on until I just turn it off. Either way, I'll keep a note just in case. Yeah, so that is almost the end of the Brewday with my 40 litre Crown mod as cheap as possible. Got most of my stuff off eBay, a couple of fittings from Aussie suppliers, just so that I knew that they're all going to match, because on eBay you have to buy them individually, and it's just sometimes easier if you know that you're buying from one source and they will all work. That was the cam locks. Yeah, so I reckon in total this cost me, including the urn and not including the immersion chiller, it cost me about $350 and about 2 hours of drilling holes and sorting it all out. You could probably use better parts if you wanted. I'm going to upgrade my little pump at some point to a March pump, just to get a bit more movement in there. But as I was doing this as cheap as possible, the $20 eBay one served me right. I'm a bit of a frugal brewer, some may call it cheap, but really I just don't have the money to spend the money on premium products at the moment. So if I can make this for as cheap as I have, and it it works. I'm quite happy. Like I said, there was a couple of issues today that haven't popped up. The SDC just freaking out on me, and my little pump stopping, but both of those seem to have rectified themselves, and it wasn't really an issue. But I guess because they happened, at least people know that they can happen, and it's not really too much of an issue. Yeah, so I'll leave this go for a while, and then I'll just cool it down and put it in my fermenter. One thing I should note about this little pump is that it does not like hops. I did a couple of brews where I think there was only about 150 grams, and I just freeballed them in, which is what I wanted to do originally. That was my whole idea. I can put the hops in, don't need to bother with bags. But one time during the whirlpool, it got clogged, and it just wouldn't work. Then the time after that, where's it at? I think I've still got it over here. I'm not even using it at the moment. I got a little 150 ml. What do you call these? Bazooka screens, and I used that, but that again got clogged. Now I was using pellets and leaf in that time, and yeah, that got clogged regardless. I think there was about 280 grams in total in that. If you're doing smaller amounts, it's probably not so bad, so you can probably get away with it. You sort of hear the pump struggling a little bit, and then all of a sudden it'll just clear. But because most of my brews, I'm using a fair amount of hops, or at least trying to use a fair amount of hops, I had to resort back to using the bags. I was going to use one of those flexi hoses and cut it up and put it around the circumference with a T-section down at the inlet. But I just haven't got around to it, and I may try it. It may work, or it may still get clogged with the amount of hops. So that's the reason for the bags. I really didn't want to use them, but in the end, I just had to really. It would be good if you could fit. Oh, no, it's really the same thing. If you fit a one of those hop metal stainless steel things in it, might just fit it in the side there. But if you're not using an immersion chiller and you're using a what do you call it, plate chiller, you'll have to use the some sort of screen anyway. And if you're no chilling, then you won't have the immersion chiller in, so you can go for gold. You can have like fucking like 5 of those stainless steel things in there probably, and then you can just spread your hops out so there's not too many in the same area, sort of restricting the flow. But that's the only issue I have with that, the fact that I can't just freeball the hops. If anyone knows if the March pump will handle like copious amounts of hops going through it, just please let me know, because either way I'll be grabbing one anyway. But it'd be good to know if it can handle it and it won't get blocked. So I just thought I'd add that in there, because that was the only thing that didn't go to plan. The hops, putting them in there with bags is just the way I'm just gonna have to do it for now. So that's Brewday complete, almost. It's just in the fridge, just getting the last little bit of chill off it. It's 2:30, so that's 6 hours. I did end up whirlpooling for an hour, so knock a bit of time off of that, and I was slack getting things tidy and that. I just sort of took my time. Yeah, so in the end, ended up getting 1.052 into the fermenter. That's 76% efficiency into the fermenter. So not really too bad for the system, I guess. Yeah, so this is my Brewday. That's pretty much how it goes. If you want to make one, all the notes are there. Yeah, good luck. Hey, so it's the day after the Brewday, and just thought I'd show you what I'm doing with my fermenter. I've actually managed to upgrade to getting an actual fridge with a Inkbird, so this is the first time using that as well, so I'm actually quite looking forward to it. Before this I was doing it in the bath with ice bottles, and then in some polystyrene boxes with ice bottles, and it was keeping it alright, but now I can actually keep it pretty good. So
there's my little Inkbird down there. So I've got it to set to 17.8 with a 0.3 differential. That was actually John Peters' advice. That way it'll never get above 18.1, and it's been like that. And then just inside is that. So it's M44 yeast, and I've noticed it does take a bit of time. I did rehydrate it, but I'm not expecting anything till tonight or even tomorrow morning, but I'm not too worried about that. So yeah, hopefully this all works out good. Thanks.